And with that being said, hey, yo, button, hit it.
And now, our favorite part of the show, the choices of the voices.
Once again, thank you to the wonderful and ever so lovely Miss Button for introducing our favorite portion of the show. You heard the woman, the choices of the voices section. That's right. So we live for all week. Something I check our Facebook like page, the Sports Bros Podcast, which you need to go check out as well too, because we got a lot of fun stuff on there. We're always having fun on there as well too. Yeah, I'm so excited about this. I love this segment of the show. I love seeing the banter back and forth with the listeners as they go back and forth with each other and go back and forth with us. But we don't discuss it too much. We save the best part for the podcast, because that's what you're here for. You're here to listen to episode number 93 of the Sports Bros Podcast. All right, Scotty D, enough of my incoherent rambling. What's the question for this week's choices of the voices?
So this week I asked asked our listeners who they felt was the worst team, or least impressive, I guess we should say, least impressive team to win a Super Bowl. There are 54 to choose from. It's been done 54 times. Which of those 54 teams did you feel was the least impressive? And again, that's kind of a tough question, because if you've won a championship, it's impressive to do that. Just looking for the one that people thought was kind of the weakest. So what do we get there, Eddie? Cool. Anybody answer us?
Yeah, we got a few answers, and that's a very interesting point, Scotty D. It's kind of like, you won a Super Bowl, but looking back at history, we go, nah. So
yeah, it's a lot easier to say, man, that was the best team of all time. But how about the worst winner? I mean, that's kind of what we're asking you.
Yeah, just meh. All right, Trey Diesel. He said the Eagles versus the Patriots. He talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, stumbled into the playoffs with a backup quarterback, Nick Foles, who wasn't even good enough to start on a bad team outside of Philly. Chicago, Jacksonville, you might be on to something. They were horrible on defense and mediocre on offense. They just hit a good streak and got super lucky. Horrible defense by both teams ended in one defensive strip sack to seal the game that was insanely hard to watch if you like defense at all. Okay, so that's the 2018 Philadelphia Eagles. No one saw that.
Yeah, that was one of those teams that just got hot at the right time, and it was just a perfect storm. Again, you can't take a whole lot away from Nick Foles' performance, but he was just in the zone, man. It's just one of those things. It's not like that team was bad, but they were not, I don't think, considered to be the favorite to win the Super Bowl going in there by any means. Actually, I think that year the Saints were really good. I'm not sure if the Rams were quite there yet, but yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that answer.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of those teams that's like, nah. All right, so here we go. Bradley Piper, what's going on, Bradley? He said the 1996 Dallas Cowboys were clearly the worst/weakest team to have won the Lombardi. Scotty D, was that Super Bowl 30, if I'm not mistaken? Yep, and that's where Larry Brown was the MVP, because somehow Neil O'Donnell thought that Larry Brown was his teammate.
That's what happened. He this is a dig at the Cowboys from a Steeler fan. This is my buddy from college, and I've had to listen to this for years about how the Cowboys were lucky to win that Super Bowl. The Cowboys were leading that game at halftime 13-7. They were up 6 at half. They finished, the final score was 27-17. They won by 10. They actually expanded the lead in the second half. And everyone acts like, well, if it wasn't for it, well, you know what? Your quarterback threw 3 interceptions, and my quarterback threw 0. That's all part of the game, my friends. It's all part of the game. You can't be hating because my team didn't make as many mistakes as your team did. That was the quarterback that brought you to the Super Bowl. Now, I'll say this about that Cowboys team. Of the 3 that won, they won those 3 out of 4. That was the weakest of the 3. At that point, free agency had started to chip away at them. The coaching staff was completely different. Obviously, Barry Switzer was there instead of Jimmy Johnson. North Turner and Dave Wannstedt had both moved on, I believe, at that point. And that's what happens to all good teams. Once you start winning, then they start other teams start picking away at your coordinators and your free agents, and that's what happened. So that Cowboy team was not as dominant as the back-to-back one from 2 years prior, but I'm not sorry about it. I'm not sad that Neil O'Donnell threw Larry Brown a couple balls. I'm glad he caught him.
Yeah, like I said, he must have thought somehow, some way that they were teammates in another lifetime. And I was like, I remember being a young kid, and I was like, oh, this guy stinks. Yeah, I don't, did Neil O'Donnell ever get a job after that?
Well, he actually, after that season, he signed a big contract with the Jets. They wanted him to be their guy. He got himself a big deal, and Pittsburgh didn't want to match it because they had Cordell Stewart in the pipeline. And I mean, Cordell was a good player. He just wasn't like a every down quarterback. And then, yeah, that was kind of the end of that. The Neil O'Donnell thing. He actually became a pretty good back. I think he backed up Steve McNair in Tennessee, like you mentioned, and I'm not sure if he bounced around anywhere else. But I tell you, that year, coming down the stretch and going into the playoffs, Neil O'Donnell was playing pretty darn good. They were running a lot of like 4 and 5 receivers, spreads, and he was slinging it around, man. And he just had a couple bad decisions. The one throw in that Super Bowl, I think the second one was the more questionable of the two. And one of and who knows if it was the receiver's fault for not being in the spot he thought he was going to be in. I never obviously interviewed Neil O'Donnell and got to the bottom of that, but the Cowboys brought a blitz. He threw the ball to what he thought was a hot read, and he threw to Larry Brown, and I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he did it twice.
Yeah, like I said, they thought they were teammates. All right, moving on from that, we got Rodney Bellamy. He said, tough one. I wanted to say the Trent Dilfer Ravens, but their defense was so good, so I'm going to have to go with Super Bowl 50. All right, because Super Bowl 50 was the Denver Broncos led by Peyton Manning versus the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Rodney. Yeah, 13 for 23 for only 141 yards with no touchdowns passing and one interception, but still got a ring. But that's just awful. Yeah, I'm glad you say that, Rodney, because not only am I a Panthers fan and I'm still seething from that loss, but I think that's where the gas takes there. I think that's where the last little bit of Peyton Manning was able to leave it all on the field, because he was struggling trying to throw a pass for 10 yards, and he didn't look good. It was like his arm was dead. He didn't look like the Peyton Manning of old. He didn't look like the Peyton Manning that threw for 50 touchdowns that one year and was on fire.
Obviously, Peyton Manning was slowing down to pretty much the end of his career in that game.
Yeah, because I'm like, this is hard to watch, because I remember the camera was in on his face, and it was like he had to literally had to will that ball out. So yeah, but then again, Rodney, that Broncos defense was like top tier. Yeah, they if you had them on your fantasy team, you did a good job on getting them as your squad. So yeah, so you said the Denver Broncos from Super Bowl 50. Craig Burns, he said the 2011 New York Giants gave up more points than they scored and had a 9-7 record.
It's both those Super Bowl runs for Eli Manning felt similar. I think they were wild card teams in both situations and finished by beating the Patriots in both situations. And in neither situation were they the better team on the field. They just got hot and played better at the right time. Those Giants teams were pretty good. They had a pretty decent defense. They had some good guys up front. And I think Brandon Jacobs may have been on that team, Bradshaw.
Justin Tubb, Usi Umenora,
maybe Victor Cruz. I think Eli made an incredible throw to Hakeem Nicks down the sideline in that game. That was the second of the Super Bowls. I think the first one was the David Tyree one, and then the second one was the one he made a really nice throw down the sideline. It's either the Mario Manningham or Hakeem Nicks. But anyway, yeah, I mean, a 9-7 team, obviously not one you think is one of the best to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like you at 9-7, it translates. Look, you barely did enough to get in here,
right?
And we don't expect you past the first round, but every time those Giants, their last couple playoff runs, man, they got in and made noise and went all the way to the freaking Super Bowl. All right, Martin Tracy, he said, no way Eli should have 2 Super Bowl rings. I'm just saying. And Pittsburgh should have never won against Arizona and Kurt Warner. Okay, wow. So we got one for the Steelers of that year and another one for the Giants.
Man, it's those Giants fans. I don't think they care that they're disrespected. They got the 2 rings. I mean, you beat the Patriots, who are considered the dynasty of the era, and they knocked them off twice in the Super Bowl. So good for Eli. I never liked Eli, but good for him.
Yep, they said. I guess they said, well, you know what? That would have been what, ring 7 and 8?
Yeah, probably.
If I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right.
Yeah, they're the only reason why Tom Brady does not have rings.
Yeah.
Has 8 rings right now. So yeah, to say that's a pretty damn big deal, because a lot of teams about, well, you know, we lost. You know, there's 6 teams. You know, one team he beat. What, did he beat a team twice? No, he lost to a team twice. I'm sorry, but yeah, that's a pretty that's pretty something something good to tout about. Yeah, but hey, we stopped him from getting all those rings. All right, so with that being said, shout out to Trey Diesel, Bradley Piper, Rodney Bellamy, Craig Burns, and Martin Tracy for their participation in this week's edition of the Choices of the Voices. Scotty,
well,
what
I
say
kicked
you?
this one around a little bit. I've heard, in obviously I cannot choose the Jets that won Super Bowl 3 with Joe Namath, because I didn't see that game. So I've heard it said that Jets team was overachieving at the end of the season and won that game over the Colts, who are considered the best team in the league and of the era. The Johnny Unitas teams. I think back to Super Bowl, I believe it was 15, where the Raiders became the first team to win a Super Bowl that as a wild card. They beat the Eagles, and Jim Plunkett was their quarterback. I'm going to go with the Ravens of 2000. I think Rodney mention that team, or was he talking about the more recent team? I think he was talking about the more recent team. That's the one I'm talking about in 2000. And I'm going to say that because I'm talking about the team. The defense was probably the greatest defense ever. The offense went 5 games in the regular season without scoring a touchdown. They were horrendous. They had Tony Banks as quarterback and replaced him with Dilfer, and neither of those guys are going to Canton. I think Jamal Lewis was their running back. He had a couple good years in Baltimore, but that team was a team that won on defense pretty much alone. I can remember a clip where Ray Lewis ran off the field and yelled to his offense, "Don't let them score." I mean, he's saying that to the offense of his team. Don't let the other team score. So,
wow.
It may seem disrespectful to save that Ravens team just because of how incredibly good the defense was, but the offense offsets that to me and makes that just a defensive Super Bowl win. So, you could almost run that parallel with the Buccaneers of 2002. But I thought they were a little bit more talented on offense. Brad Johnson wasn't a great quarterback, but he was pretty good, and I think they had all-star work done. I just felt like the Ravens team was, and maybe I had a little bit against them because I did not enjoy watching that team at all, play football at all. I just didn't like that team. Your turn, buddy.
Yeah, I'm with you, Scotty D, man. I've also have kicked this around too, and I'm currently looking at the list. I'm like, well, everybody deserves it, and I'm going to have to say, man, those same Baltimore Ravens, because like you said, they were the drizzling poops on offense, except for Jamal Lewis, and Jamal Lewis didn't become Jamal Lewis until a couple years down the road. But yeah, can I name one wide receiver from that team? They had some dude from Florida named Travis Taylor. I think Priest Holmes might have been on that team before he became Priest Holmes. Other than that, it was Ray and Chris McAllister and the Goose and all those other guys, man. Yeah, like you said, that defense was the one that, if you could say like that defense was the sole reason why they won the Super Bowl and why they got to where they got to, then that's it. Because I forgot like what they had at that time. They had like a league record. I think what teams scored like no more than
they averaged
50, 60
giving up
points?
like 10.3 points a game or something like that. They gave up 10 a game. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, they gave up like 10 a game, and that defense was stout. stout
They didn't
all
even win their
across the board.
division.
And it was just
Tennessee Titans won that division, and they did beat the Titans in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure that year, but like I said, they went 5 games without scoring a touchdown. They were winning because Stover was kicking field goals.
Yeah, how in the hell do you that? Yeah, that. Could we say that was a weak year for football? No, not really. But for you to have Tony Banks as your quarterback and then Trent Dilfer to come in and be serviceable at best, like I said, I can't remember a single wide receiver. Was Todd Heap on the team at the time?
And
No,
not only that, but they beat the Giants in the Super Bowl that year, and that was the Kerry Collins Giants. It wasn't even a great Giants team that they beat, but they smoked them. They beat them 34-7. I think the Giants ran a kickback for a touchdown. I think that was their only score.
Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't probably the most fun year for football for me.
Yeah, because I mean I saw some a while back, Scotty D. I think the year 2000 was the year of the running back. I'll share that video with you, and I'll also share with our listeners as well too on the Facebook site. It was a good year for running backs, but apparently a putrid year for the Baltimore Ravens offense. I don't even want to look at the numbers, but it was just people just think about the Ravens defense. Oh, they had offense too? Oh, yeah, that is right. So so the defense played offense. The defense
they won the wild card game against
pretty
Denver
much.
21-3. They beat the Titans in the division round 24-10, and then they beat the Raiders in the championship 16-3. And in the Super Bowl, they gave up the 1 touchdown on a return. So it looks like they gave up 1 touchdown in those 4 postseason games, which is unbelievable. Again, maybe the best defense of all time. You might throw the 85 Bears in there. That's pretty close, but just the offense was ridiculously terrible.
Yeah, the offense. All right, Scotty D. Actually, then we have this little one down here between the Rams and the Patriots. Of all the Patriots teams, this one looked the least.
Where'd that one come from? Who wrote that? Yeah. Oh, that was just another one you were considering.
Me.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, but that Patriots team itself was a pretty good team. That was just a lousy game.
Yeah, oh my God, that game was lousy.
Horrible Super Bowl.
I was like, I'm not entertained. And then and then KC and San Fran made up last year, was a good one. So once again, we got KC and this time Tampa Bay playing in a big game this year.
Hey, what say you, B-Live? Who'd you pick for this week?
All right. Well, those are some very interesting answers, and we've had some pretty disappointing teams. It's hard to say disappointing when you're talking about the winner of the Super Bowl, because you have to be better than 31 other teams, but there are some teams that are just really knock it out of the park. And yes, some of those teams that have been mentioned, not so much. But I'm very, 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 very surprised that I did not hear something that just happened very recently. And that's going to be my answer for this week's question. I cannot believe that nobody mentioned the 2018-2019 New England Patriots. It gets lumped into the fact that, yes, Tom Brady won his 6th ring, most all-time GOAT, blah, 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 and the fact he's going back to another Super Bowl. We've talked about that ad nauseum already, but you know what? It is what it is. I digress a little bit, but check this out. That year that they made it to the Super Bowl, they clinched their division, of course, but they also clinched the number 2 seed and a first round bye, which number 2 seed had a first round bye back then. It's only 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. With an 11-5 record, let me put that in perspective real quick. An 11-5 record was sitting at home this year in the AFC, and they had an expanded playoff. Granted, they won the division. They'd have made the playoffs anyway. But for them to be a number 2 seed, wow. So the AFC wasn't really that strong that year. But, that's why I just want to put that out there. Their MVP was the MVP of the Super Bowl was Julian Edelman. I mean, I know y'all. I mean, Julian Edelman's had some good years and everything. I mean, he redefined the definition of the slot receiver. But for him to win the MVP of the Super Bowl was interesting. But I digress. On this team with Tom Brady, leading the team, whatever. Only 2 players had over 1,000 scrimmage yards. Perspective again, comparison. This year, the Carolina Panthers had 4 players. Just remind you, just two seasons later, same style of football, but and the 2 players that had over 1,000 scrimmage yards were both running backs. And wow. So maybe it's the level of talent, the style of play. I mean, at the end of the day, New England's defense really carried them that year, which has been some of the tales of some of the teams that have been mentioned. But yeah, I was not impressed. And then that Super Bowl itself, 13-3. Oh my God, I fell asleep. Whew, it was tough to watch. And also, let me just take this moment to name the offensive starters for New England during that Super Bowl win. They had Chris Hogan. He's now a Panther now after 2 years. Julian Edelman. I'm not even. Is he still with the Patriots? Probably still with the Patriots. All right. Trent Brown, Joe Thuney, David Andrews, Shaq Mason, Marcus Cannon. Their offensive line. Do we really profess to know that much about offensive linemen? Not really. But I digress again. Gronk was their starting tight end, which you know how he made his move. Now it's with Tampa Bay and blah blah blah. And had Sony Michel and James White as running backs, and James Devlin as their fullbacks. Sony Michel and James White were the only 2 players that had over 1,000 scrimmage yards. So and defense, they were stout. They were definitely stout on defense, but really, just was not really impressed with that team. And some of the other Patriot teams that won Super Bowls. Again, Tom Brady has made less more, but that's why he's in the GOAT conversation. But yeah, 2018-2019 Patriots, not impressed, but you still won the big one, 6 rings for Tom Brady. Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to say this again, please don't let Brady get a 7. Please, pretty please, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Yeah, that's my answer. Yes, sir.
All right, Scotty D, enough of me babbling. What's the question?
All right, going into our Super Bowl week, Wes, one more Super Bowl question. When you think of the Super Bowl, what do you envision in your mind as the most memorable moment? There's been tons of moments. I mentioned the David Tyree catch on the helmet a few minutes ago. That's one of those ones when you think of like great plays or historic plays in Super Bowl history, just memorable ones that stand out to you. We're just looking for some of those, some great memorable Super Bowl moments from you guys.
Great Super Bowl moments.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot
to choose from. There's
it's
some will stand out more than others.
Yeah, you're right. Some will stand out more than others. And that's it for another edition of Choices of the Voices.